Since the birth of social media, but probably since the beginning of time, men have had the short end of the stick when it comes to social experiments. One of the most prominent ones I can think of is where women were asked if they would eat any of the M&Ms in a bowl if they knew that one of them were poison, and that poison M&M is supposed to be men. What we have now is called the man versus bear trend, right? And it's another social experiment that has sparked a bigger conversation on women's fear of men. But one of my favorite social experiments that I'm seeing is probably male podcasters. Male podcasters have typically like a pretty bad rap, right? You've got like Fresh and Fit podcast, for example. But what if I told you that there was one that did a really good job of just exposing women for who they are just by allowing them to speak? And of course, I'm talking about the Whatever podcast. And today I want to share with you a couple clips that have to do with more centered around domestic violence and just how much we have misunderstood it in society. From women thinking that it's just predominantly men beating the ever-living shit out of women, to women thinking that the only reason why gay men take up the least amount of the domestic violence rate is because there's underreporting. There's so much stigma, so much misunderstanding, and we're going to break down the irony of it today. I want to highlight his recent podcast here, one where he had these two particular characters on. This one girl who's predominantly centered around the conversation of domestic violence, and then this other one that is very proud of her own assumed domestic violence. Let me show you what I'm talking about by starting off with this chick and her completely idiotic statement.
He does ask everyone to rate their looks on a scale of 1 to 10.
I would give myself a 10 out of 10.
I went through a lot of therapy to get myself to where I feel like I'm a 10 out of 10, so I'm gonna remove myself from this conversation because I'm not gonna let a podcast undo years of therapy. Thank you.
Now, I just thought it would be funny to throw that in there because she's talking about not being able to discuss whether or not she's a 10 out of 10 because of years of therapy, and she doesn't want to undo that. But she has no problem sitting on this podcast and potentially undoing years of therapy and men who have come to terms with the fact that they were in fact victims of domestic violence by her suggesting that it's only men perpetrating this crime. This is what I'm talking about.
Are you gonna be mad if I make a generalization?
Nope.
Men are more violent than women.
If we're looking at homosexual relationships, for example, they've actually found that gay men have the lowest incidence rate of domestic violence. And then next up, in terms of couplings, you have heterosexual relationships. And then the highest incidence rate of domestic violence is actually in lesbian relationships.
I would almost argue that like it's unreported among gay males. But
Domestic
don't you guys like
violence.
stand on the point that men are stronger than women?
Yeah.
Don't you want to protect like women
It
against
doesn't
the
make you
strong
more
men?
violent just because you're strong.
I would think that.
For instance, there's going to be women who are stronger than other women, right?
Sure.
Would you then infer that that would mean that women who are stronger than other women would just be more violent because they're stronger?
No, I think that testosterone makes men more violent.
Okay, but there's going to be higher rates of testosterone in stronger women than less strong women.
So then, yeah, if they would have more testosterone, then they would be more violent. Yeah.
So your inference is that testosterone equals violence?
Yeah.
So can estrogen.
The fact that she can actually sit on this podcast and say this and believe it when she was just sitting right next to this chick who had this to say.
Your 6-year relationship, you said it was on again, off again? Mm-hmm. Was this the one that you cast a hex on?
Yeah.
That broke his back?
Yeah. Shout out.
So you're telling me that this triple fat neck feminist just sat beside this girl who tells this horrific story about her ex breaking his back and her thinking it's absolutely hilarious, but then in the same breath she can say women are less violent than men. Really?
When you say he broke his back, is he like in a wheelchair, or what's the severity of his injury?
I have no idea. I just saw the post, like a GoFundMe posted by one of his friends, and then one of them reached out to me and they asked me, they're like, was this him? Like, did you hex him? And I was like, I'm not going to say anything.
You realize how catastrophic a back injury is?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of interesting that you're smiling. You seem a bit happy that somebody's going through a substantial, life-altering...
I can't really talk about it because the word is going to trigger you guys, but he essayed me multiple times and abused me multiple times. It was a very toxic relationship. So I don't feel bad if an abuser gets what's coming to them.
How fucking convenient. Almost every woman who has been caught exuding extreme violence against men, they just come back with the whole, well, he was abusing me. He essayed me and abused me multiple times. Really, that's why for 6 years you kept going back. Not one police report. You You hexed him? No, here's what actually happened. He didn't want to be with her anymore, okay, so they broke up. And she wanted to be witchy and cool because you have to keep in mind, she's probably like 26, so my generation didn't have the they-thems, right? We had like goth girls and witches. So she wants to be edgy and cool, and so she heard that her ex broke his back, and she's so abusive and so vile that she feels good taking credit for something she didn't even do. Now I want to bring it back to social experiments for a minute, because it's a very key reason as to why so many modern women nowadays are so convinced that like men are just inherently more dangerous than women. Most men who have grown up with social media or have experienced social media have been at the butt end of these dehumanizing social experiments, and this time it's the man versus bear trend. In case you're not familiar, it's this viral trend where women are asked would they rather be alone in a forest with a bear or a man, and surprise, surprise, most women picked a bear. Not really sure why, considering bears will literally rip you open and then shit inside your wounds to mark you as their territory, and then they leave and like go fuck up something else and then come back and play with you. And the longer you stay alive, the funner it is for them, actually. So just a fun tidbit about bears. But what's the reality, right? The reality is that 0.9% of women in America will face a violent crime in their lifetime, meaning that women are around literally thousands of men daily who will never hurt her or anybody else in their lifetime. Because the reality is if you switched all of the men in America and the boys with bears, violent crimes would 1000% go up drastically. But nonetheless, women will justify this by saying that 80% of violent crimes are committed by men. But yeah, that's true. However, the percentage of men that are actually committing those violent crimes, it's incredibly small. It's actually 0.2%. But hey, if you believe in these types of social experiments, then I don't understand why the internet was so pissed off at me when I created my own, which was crocodiles versus women.
You make me do too much labor all day, every day. Therapist, mother, maintenance, then a virgin.
Did you know that out of the two genders that abuse children the most, nay, kill children the most, mothers actually take up the majority of that? Mothers abuse and neglect their children more than fathers do. So if I were to ask you, would you rather leave your child with a crocodile or a woman, would it be fair for me to go on social media and say that a crocodile wouldn't have locked me in a room, starved me as a child, forced me to live within my own feces, isolated me from the world, and knowingly allowed me to get aggressively molested by my older brother? Probably not. Would I also be incredibly irresponsible to leave out the fact that there are far more women who will protect children, love children, and never hurt children than there are women who will put children through what my mother put me through? Yeah, I would be wildly irresponsible. It would be fear-mongering and it would be disgusting. See, these women catch you with these videos because that Medusa tattoo is supposed to represent women who have been sexually assaulted or something like that. And it's hard when people put their trauma at the face right beside something that's very much sexist. Because it's really hard to say to a woman, yes, you were traumatized by a man, but not all men will do that, because intrinsically you feel like you're invalidating her. But the reality is that your trauma isn't your fault. However, when you become an adult, it becomes your responsibility, meaning it's your responsibility not to project your trauma onto everybody else and blame everybody else who didn't even cut you to begin with. You're bleeding all over them. If I got attacked by a black man, would it be fair to go on the internet and say, well, a crocodile wouldn't have attacked me? No, you're just being sexist. You're separating gender and oppressors, and I'm telling you that women can be just as vile and just as dangerous. So picking the bear makes you sexist. I'm sorry for your trauma, but it's not everybody else's responsibility. Thank you. See, women are the primary abusers of children in America yearly. They do it far more than men. But if I were to ask you, would you rather leave your child with a crocodile or a woman? Most of you would probably say women, because although yes, women are the primary abusers of children, they take up such a small percentage of women. Most women are not out here molly-whopping their children like my mother did to me. Most of them are very loving. I'm a good mom. I can attest to that. Many of you have good mothers. I'm sure you can attest as well. So when a woman sits on a podcast and says something like this,
Men are more violent than women.
but then can't stand the sentiment that she may not be a 10 out of 10.
Or he does ask everyone to rate their looks on a scale of 1 to 10.
I would give myself a 10 out of 10.
I went through a lot of therapy to get myself to where I feel like I'm a 10 out of 10. So I'm gonna remove myself from this conversation because I'm not gonna let a podcast undo years of therapy. Thank you.
I'm a little confused.
I had a lot of issues with self-esteem, and I worked through them a lot in therapy. And like part of that is like seeing myself a 10 out of 10. So I'm going to keep that delusion for me. Thanks. I have obviously bitten off more than I can chew.
No, you're good.
No.
Oh, you're doing great. Don't worry about it. You're a legend. You're a
Thank
legend.
you.
You came in guns blazing. You're doing great.
I tried. No, I really do appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Wait, we got to get through at least all your notes.
No.
Hold on.
Can this be a respectful quit?
Wait. You can't just
I'm
leave.
I'm not crying. I'm tired. That's
You're
why.
tired?
Yeah, I've been up since like 3 a.m.
Listen, but at least hear the offer.
Respectfully.
I will
Thank you
fast
so
track.
much.
I will fast track your
It's not a
notes.
rage quit.
I will fast. You said it was a rage quit.
It's not.
I think it was a rage quit.
Thank you so much.
I think it was a
for
rage
having
quit.
me
I
here.
think you can't defend your worldview. I think you're a coward, to be honest.
It's a little bit ridiculous to me because it just shows that her connection to reality, like where she thinks reality is and where it actually is, there is like galaxies in between there. Did you know that male victims of domestic violence in the UK are considered male victims of violence against women? Yup, I'm not making it up. Check this out. This is a capture of a very real government document in the UK classifying male abuse victims. So many modern feminists walk around with the false ideology that women are not as violent as men because feminists and feminist organizations intentionally skew statistics. And the reason behind it, I've been saying it for years, financial incentive. We want to go into like the irony of that document and what it would look like if we change some of the words around. Like, this is what it would look like. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, isn't really fair, and kind of contradictory, right? In the UK and Wales, there are 2.9 million male victims of domestic violence, and they are currently classified as victims of violence against women, insinuating that they are women, because only women can be abused, despite the fact that clearly that's not the case. When the Commissioner of UK Domestic Violence was asked, hey, like, do you think this makes sense? Is this fair? The response that they got is absolutely terrifying. Does the minister agree that this categorization is semantic nonsense and that ignoring men's specific needs makes a mockery of equality? Which the response is, and if we did it in the way that he suggested, there may have been a lot of complaints from women and domestic abuse organizations. It's monetary incentive. They are intentionally skewing, holding back, and manipulating statistics so that women feel afraid, so that women walk around this world feeling scared and like victims. Why? Because there are so many tax-funded female organizations, and if they spoke about the truth that comes with domestic violence, in their eyes, they will lose all of this funding. Why it would piss feminists off to find out that men also get abused? Not sure. I feel like it would make men and women feel a little bit closer, and maybe like abuse isn't a gendered issue, but for some reason, that's not what we're seeing. And there is unequivocal, undeniable proof that not only the domestic violence statistics that I'm sharing with you today are legit, but also there is undeniable proof that feminists are intentionally hiding it from you. Here is every single NISVS partner abuse survey from the CDC. They are currently in the process of doing an updated one, but what these metrics show you for years consistently is that women were actually a little bit more abusive than men. Maurice Strauss researched over 200 plus studies. His partner, Sarah, she researched 750, and what they found is not only that there's like that feminists are lying, that there's a lot more domestic violence that men are the victims of, but they also identified these 7 ways that feminists and feminist organizations are hiding the truth. They're doing it by concealing evidence, avoiding obtaining evidence, selective citation of research, state conclusions contradicting the data, blocking publication of articles that report gender symmetry, and preventing funding of research to investigate female partner violence. I just want to remind you that this doesn't just impact men. Lesbians take up the majority of the domestic violence rate, so if they're not researching female abusers, this is making it so that the lesbian domestic violence rate stays incredibly high. The way that these feminists shut down the truth is primarily done through harassment. With these professors, they are absolutely world-renowned, so respected in the field of domestic violence until they expose the truth, right? Then every single one of them experienced harassment. They just got blackballed from their industry. Everything from death threats to bomb threats where they were supposed to be presenting. They've been accused of sexually abusing their wives, beating them. I mean, the girl almost got it the worst though. Feminists harassing people so they don't share the truth? Oh my God, it's not like I as a men's rights advocate and many other men's rights advocates have been experiencing that for years. My house got vandalized, social services got called. People were saying that I was like drugging my then 3-year-old daughter, that I was pimping her out to the men on my Patreon. I mean, the allegations that I faced was actually disgusting. And it crossed allegations when my house was getting vandalized, my car got vandalized, I was being stalked. Some crazy crackhead on Reddit was giving like video step-by-step instructions on how to get to my old condo. It was fucking crazy. I'm still facing censorship. I just lost my Instagram at 270,000. I have a new one. It's called Roma's Man Cave. I would totally appreciate your support there. But if not, I just want to leave you with this. The next time you see me make a video where a woman shares her trauma and then immediately says man versus bear and I would choose the man, don't get mad at me, okay? I'm just called a what? An incel lover, a misogynist, a pick-me girl, like, so next time you see me make videos like this, don't get mad at me. Thank you.